So at this point, I've generated a public-private key on my private server, published it to a web page, and I've gone over to my other person here who's now downloaded the public key to his or her machine. So the idea here is this person wants to send an encrypted message to this person. This person has created a public-private key, therefore they want to be able to decode messages that are sent to them. So they publish their public key. So I'm going to utilize the public key on my public server here, my public user, I should say, to encrypt a message. We're then going to send that message to this person over here who's going to be able to decrypt it. So the first step in that process is let's do an image, because you're going to run into these in Cyber Patriot. They're going to give you things that have been encrypted using GPG, and they may have a key somewhere on the system you have to find, who knows. So I'm going to go to images, and I'm just going to look for any image, an appropriate image for class. I'll type the word lock for mine. I'll pick something like this. I'll click through. Here's what you need to get to. I'm going to right-click on some image somewhere on some web page. And I'm going to open the image in a new tab. And I'm going to verify that that image ends in something like JPEG. Now, this one has a T=159 thing, so I don't like that. So I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to try to take a look and see if it does work, and it does. You want a solid image that ends in a JPEG or a PNG or some common image format. So find an image, check your URL bar, make sure that you are looking at a straight image on the web somewhere. I'm going to copy that web address. I'm going to go to my server here, and I'm going to, let's wget it right here. Wget, I'll maximize my public machine here. I'm going to wget that image. So by pasting HTTPS images globalindustrial.com, there's that JPEG file. It's going to fetch that image. I'm going to do an ls. I'm going to verify. I'm going to do an ls-alh to get the long form information, and the H isn't necessary here. I'm going to show hidden files too. And so I can see that this JPEG file is 23 kilobytes. It's got a big K there, 23 kilobytes, right? I could also run file on it. I could run file 65 tab, and it's going to tell me that this is a JPEG file. It's going to give me a bunch of information about it. So by running file on it, I can see that my download was correct, and I actually have a JPEG file. Great. So now that I've downloaded a JPEG file, we need to encrypt that. So let's import this public key into our GPG program. I'm going to go GPG -import bec.key. Just like that. And it's going to say, okay, we are the root user here. That's important. We've done a sudo su before we've done that. We've got a public ring here that was created. And it was able to process that key, and it even recognized my name. Remember, we didn't hand this public user my name or anything, jbec@noemail.net. But by importing bec.key, it's got that again, that information embedded inside of that information. So I'll do a GPG --list keys here. And you can see that I have the public key here of jbec@noemail.com. So here I am on my public machine here. I've imported my key, and I've got this JPEG file that's in plain text. Well, it's in plain JPEG, right? So we're going to use GPG, and I'm going to do output, and I'll call this picture.gpg. And most encrypted GPG files by default are going to have the .gpg extension. But not always. Again, you can always run file against some file on a computer. It'll tell you what it actually is. But we're going to make it a .gpg. I'm going to tell it I want to encrypt this file, and I'm going to tell it the recipient is going to be jbec@noemail.net. And that's going to say, okay, find the public key, if you have it, of this person, and then encrypt the file that I want is the very last thing, right? And I've made my life hard by not giving that an easy name. 652.867g.jpg. Kind of a long command, right? So we're going to take this file here that's in plain text. We're going to make it picture.jpg. We're going to encrypt it to this person. I'm going to hit enter. And it's going to tell me that it's not certain this key belongs to the person named. That's because we haven't signed it and we haven't gone through an extra process there. And that's fine in this case. You can sign your key and you can let your computer know that you are darn sure that this key you got belongs to the person who sent it. But in this case, we're going to use this key anyway. We're not going to go through those extra steps. I'll do an ls and you can see that I have picture.jpg here. Wonderful. Now we need to transfer this encrypted file back to our original user so that it can be decrypted. So we've encrypted it using the public key. Now here's a key fact. Now that I've encrypted picture.jpg using the public key, I cannot decrypt it using the public key. The public key is no longer good to us for decryption purposes. Just because I know the public key doesn't mean I can take this encrypted file and decrypt it. I must have the secret key in order to do that. And so we need to get it to the private server where we generated that secret key and where that secret key lives right now in order to decrypt this. So we're going to go through the same set of steps we did before. I'm going to apt install Apache 2, and we're going to use the web server to transfer this encrypted file. I'm going to pause the video while I install Apache. And I've resplit my screen. Again, we've got our public server over here and our original private individual over here. I'm going to go back to my Amazon Web Services tab here. And I need to open up port 80 on my public machine because now we're going to have a web server here we're going to be using, right? So we're going to go through that process of, I'm sure there's a shorter way to do this, security group ID. And I'm going to open up port 80 on my public machine as well. Oops. We do not want to eliminate SSH traffic. Bad idea. Add rule. That's the second I tell it not to allow SSH. Guess what? It's going to cut me out. All right, so now I'm enabling port 80 on all IP addresses are allowed to access this now. We're going to save it. Wonderful. So I'm going to rm var www html index.html. I'm going to maximize my public machine right now. And the command that I just typed looks like this. I'm going to erase the index.html on my public machine, just like we did before. And I'm going to cp the encrypted version. Cp picture.jpg var www html, like so. And I'm going to go back to my host operating system now, and let's take a look at that. I've got to find my IP address of the machine here. And in this case, it's at 385.171.45. 3.85.171.45. You can see I've got picture.jpg there. If I click on it, it's not going to show me the picture of that lock. It's going to tell me this is a JPG file. It's not a picture file or anything that we can look at. So I'm going to copy the link address of my encrypted file on the public server now. Great. So now that I have published my encrypted file to the web server, and I've copied the address of that to my host machine, I can come over here and let's create a new folder somewhere. I'm going to go to like Home Ubuntu. I'm going to maximize my private server now. mkdir, I'll call this decrypt. I'll create a folder called decrypt just to put this in. Because I may send you some things and you may want to fetch it into decrypt so you know where it is. I'm going to run wget and I'm going to paste the address of, try that again, copy link address, wget. I'm going to paste the web address, http 385.171.45, the IP address of my public server. I'm going to fetch that GPG file. If I do an ls, we should see that we have picture.gpg there. I'm going to do this. I'm going to file picture.gpg just to see what it tells me. And if you take a look at file picture.gpg here, it tells me this is a PGP RSA encrypted file here. So we can see that, yeah, we fetched it correctly and it seems to identify it. Okay, so now let's go ahead and decrypt that file. And I'm going to do that with my GPG command on my private server once again. We're going to say output, and I'll call this picture.jpg. And we are going to want to decrypt the file called picture.jpg. And it's going to say, okay, you want to decrypt this, huh? Well, yeah, I have your private key, but you put a password on it. So what was that password? And so I know my password. And it says here that after typing gpg output picture.jpg, decrypt picture.jpg. I'm going to do an ls. And you can see that I have the GPG, and now I've got a decrypted.jpg file that I could put on my web server and look at it if I wanted to, and it would actually work. So here's what I need for a turn-in. Okay? I need you on your private server. We're going to use something like the snipping tool. All right? And we're going to snip this so I can take a picture of this, and I'll just create a new one here. And I'm going to snip this right here. And so what I would like to see is, I would like to see that you ran file on the GPG, and it shows that it is indeed a GPG file. I need to see that you ran the GPG output command here. And that it shows after an ls that indeed it was successful in decrypting it. And then I have an encrypted version of the file sitting next to a plain text version of the file. So after running this command, just send me all of this in the screenshot. Now that I've got this screenshot here, I can save it, and you will find a turn-in on Google Classroom that says GPG final turn-in. And you need to submit this screenshot for credit to show me you've worked through this process. Appreciate your time. I'll have some GPG challenges coming up as well, where I will encrypt some things for you. We'll have capture the flags that deal with this as well. So this process here in our Security Plus CTFs is one you're not going to want to forget. I'm going to throw CTFs out there at later dates that involve GPG and utilizing this process to figure out what's going on. So hope you feel comfortable with this. We'll do a little more practice as well in class. Thank you for your time.